Welcome back to Path to Mastery. Today, we're going to go into Phase 3 of learning a build. So Phase 1 was, well, first off, this build is still Maro's TVT of 2018 that he's been using to completely destroy the ladder in all the competitions on the highest level. So I'm trying this build out because it's amazing. The first phase one is working it out when you're taking it very slow, pausing it, just looking at the build order, reading the build order, then doing it, and trying to understand why you're doing what. Phase number 2 is the grind, where you're just grinding this out. So you're not worried about anything being on time or being late, but you're just worried about doing the build as clean as possible. And if you look at my history, I've done this. My custom games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, just about 10 times in the past hour. And just trying to get this build understand. I'm fairly comfortable with this build now. I think I could go onto the ladder and probably play it up to platinum level. But I want to try to get this up into the higher levels. So right now I'm at plat 1. I can, I feel like I could probably play it like plat 3, plat 2 level with this build, but I want to get it up into that plat 1. So now it's time for phase 3. Phase 3 is the memorization, and to be able to learn this build you have to stop looking at the build, and every time you forget something, pause the game and remember what you're supposed to do without looking at the build. This is when the build should kind of be in your brain and you have to just kind of be able to do it naturally. So I'll show you kind of what I mean. And I play this up until about 6 minutes after I get the second command center, and then I just let it go and just macro out. So I'll show you the next phase of this. So we're going to do my standard build.
Not enough minerals.
Since it's against Terran, I'm not going to wall off because that's a terrible idea, because Marines and Cyclones just break your barracks, and then you have to
Not enough minerals.
do things about it. Okay. Alright. So here we go.
Additional
So this is all fairly muscle memory for me right now. Checking my hotkeys, making sure they're okay. 4, I don't have my 4. There we go. Fixed it. So you see, this is why we do it. This is why we do that last check before this stage is done. This is right when a probe or something is going to come into my base if I'm playing against Protoss and the cheekiness. So here we go.
Not enough minerals.
Okay. Now, this.
Not enough.
I remember up until now.
Not enough minerals. Command center upgrade complete.
That first it's going to be. Oh my goodness.
Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals.
Here we go. So, I just found out a mistake I did. If you see my second gas, I'm done with the build now. I've made my first mistake. Now, I pause it and I realize, what did I miss? And I realize what I missed. This right here. second gas is not filled right away. So when does that fill up? I'm going to notice right as soon as my reactor finishes, my gas finishes, and I need to fill that up. So yeah, I'm microing my Reaper a little bit. I'm microing my Reaper a little bit in order to do this, but I screwed it up. So I'm going to write in my build things to be careful of when reactor finishes. Place 2 more into gas. Now, I failed. I failed it, so we surrender and we mark it down in my replay. It's going to count as a loss. So, I played 10 games. Here are my 10 games. Now, as soon as I can do 5 games where I don't make a mistake, so I have win, 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 5 wins in a row, I'm on to my third stage, or fourth stage, the final stage. But that is this problem. So let's do this one more time, since this is a pretty short video. Let's do this again. So what I'm going to try to do now is do the exact same thing, but when the reactor finishes, I want to put it back into gas. So let's do lost and found. I want to fill up my gas as soon as my reactor is finished, so I can get my cyclones out. And you should really understand why that was a big mistake. And this whole build is based on getting out your first 6 cyclones, so you can transition and then defend if they're doing anything, and also be pretty aggressive. So I'm trying to keep my APM up now that I'm just worried about my build, because if you're doing things like moving your Reaper and all these other little things, you get into the habit of that during your actual build. So even if you're not like attack moving anything, you should really be at least trying to move your units around as much as you can. It keeps your mini-map awareness and everything down. So the whole goal is to try to get past 2 minutes and 30 seconds when I missed my filling up the gas. Two, three, 4, and then 6. No, I'm weird. I skip F5. That's for my army.
Not enough minerals.
My army rally hotkey is F5, so I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is my army key, and 6 is my 5th base. Ah, I just canceled that SCV. Alright, I hit the wrong button and I canceled that SCV. That was wrong. Again, try it again. This is what I mean. During the grind phase, it's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay. You're just trying to get into the habit of, alright, here's what I'm doing next. Here's what I'm doing next. Here's where I'm going next. Here's where I'm going next. Where in this memorization phase, you need to be perfect. You're memorizing how to do this build perfectly. Not just the build anymore. That's the grind. You know the build basically after you grind it out. Now it's memorizing this build. So I screwed up. I hit the wrong button. I canceled the SCV before I could build the gas. Big mistake. Oh, that was... Alright, well, that's fine. 6. So all these little steps I find out during the grind. During the grind phase where I'm like, okay, I can rally the first SCV out to there, then the next SCV I rally out towards gas, and then I put towards here because there's only one SCV on that one. And it's not going to cause any other collisions. I can build one more SCV before I have to do barracks. I'm going to put the barracks over here so I can build the factory above it.
Not enough minerals.
As soon as the barracks goes down, I'm going to take this guy and this guy, fill that gas, get that dude out, rally him over to there, make another SCV. Now this SCV here can scout the thirds if I want it to. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. And I think that's going to stay that way, because if I don't feel like I'm going to be cheesed, I don't need to put it in the build. It's just a waste of resources. But if I'm playing someone twice in a row, or if I doubted some cheese on the ladder, then I will do that. So here we go. This is going to be just fine. I'm ready to start my orbital command. Orbital command Reaper. Now, Reaper is rallied out over to here, so I can see if he's expanding.
Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals.
Now the next thing I need to do is put my factory up here. Put my factory above it.
Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals. Command center upgrade complete. Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals.
Ah, I screwed up again. Alright, so what did I screw up? I need to do this reactor before I do the supply depot. The reason is, I'll show you why. I'll show you why I know that's the way it is. So I screwed this up. I did this first. I'm going to show you why. Because when my factory finishes, my reactor is still going to be building. So I'll show you why I shouldn't have done that. So it's not a big mistake, but it's not perfect.
Not enough minerals.
Let's try to at least get my gas in. Right here, you see this? See how it's not done yet?
Add-on complete.
So I gotta put these two in there as soon as that's done. I remember that this time. But now, and look at my money. Look at my money. I'm floating 400 resources because of that little move right there. So these are the kind of things that you're fixing. So I make a new mistake every time. So this time, what did I do? Don't build. So I'm going to put this in my list. I'm going to put this above when the gas finishes because I made this mistake. The gas is not going to finish before the Reaper pops. And as soon as the Reaper pops, I need to do reactor. So reactor before supply depot. That's a big issue I had just then. So this is how you do it. You do this over and over. So I lost. We're done. And the reason I don't continue forward is because if the first half of my build, the first little part, if I'm making this small mistake in the beginning, that's going to compound and compound and compound onto my build. So I don't do this from the start because I want to know where my build is going. I want to see what's coming next because that way I know when I make a mistake why it's a mistake. If you don't do these phases in order, just the working it out, understanding what I'm doing when and how it's going to start lining up, and then you grind it out, even if it's late, you do it a couple times, and then you memorize it by doing kind of back to the grind, where you're like, oh no, I screwed this up. If you don't do the grind, if you don't do that grinding section, you don't know, oh, I need to do the reactor first before the supply depot and before the gas, because if I don't do that, then my Hellions are going to be delayed, and I need to have my Hellions out at a really crisp timing in order to get their Reaper and their SCV, or to get into the mineral line and to do this damage. And you have to make sure that I know exactly why that was a mistake, because I grinded it out 10 times. Or ground it out 10 times, I guess. That's the past tense for ground. So I'm going to do this until I get it correct 5 times, and then we will move on to the last phase of this. So hopefully you learned something. This is maybe the most important phase, but if you don't do the first 2 steps properly, then this one doesn't work. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.